Hello and welcome to Ode to Games. I'm Kevin Van joined alongside Logan Plant. How you doing, Logan?
Doing good, Kev. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. A bit of a slower week this week after all of the news surrounding the Nintendo Direct, State of Play, Yakuza Like a Dragon stuff. We have some TGS stuff to get to,
What's
but
Yakuza?
it, nothing.
I don't know
It's
what
dead to me.
Yakuza is.
It's dead to me. It's dead to Sega. It's dead to everyone now, apparently. But that doesn't mean that we don't have some big news stories to get to. First off, huge leak news. GTA 6 got leaked. Its source code got leaked. This is one of the biggest breaches in terms of leaks that I think we've ever seen, just with how high profile
hmm
GTA 6 is. And this isn't just leaking a document saying that this game is on the way or this is the location that the game is going to be set. This is full on gameplay images and a bunch of stuff leaked. What did you see from this GTA leak?
Oh man, I think that the main thing with this conversation is that the general video game fan just doesn't have any idea how video game development works because they were
It's pretty
taking a look at what
embarrassing.
they saw and basically saying, "Wow, this looks unfinished." Yeah, it literally is an unfinished game. Like, so that was kind of just the biggest thing. I don't know. I guess I don't want to talk too much about the actual gameplay stuff because I think it's disappointing for the team working on this thing that it did leak. I just think it's a shame. Like, what do we have to gain from leaking this stuff? Like, man, leakers previously leaked Red Dead Redemption 2 from Rockstar a few years ago, and they got their pants suit off, and it's like this it's gonna happen again. This leak
I
is
mean, yeah,
way
they're
bigger. The
possibly
people
going to
that
be investigated by the FBI.
yeah, I saw that was starting up yesterday. It's like just don't do this, you know? It's like yeah. Rockstar did what released their statement saying that it's not going to be pushed back. Development is going to remain on track for what they were currently targeting. I guess what I will say is honestly, this game looked further along than I would have expected for how far out I think we kind of think it is. And we've heard that Rockstar is maybe taking the development of this game to turn their crunch culture around after all those reports surrounding Red Dead Redemption 2. So I guess maybe that was a positive to see. That's actually true. Like it's not just polygons and unfinished shapes right now. Like it actually looks like some semblance of a real game. And I still don't think we're expecting to see this for a couple of years. So that part surprised me. But yeah, it was just lame. And then this dude was like taking requests. They're like, "What mechanic do you want to see?" Well, I'll show it to you
Yeah,
right
real
now. It's
gross.
like, yeah, it's super gross. And he was like trying to sell the source code. He's like, "Make me an offer. I won't accept anything below 6 digits." It's just like super gross, super lame.
Yeah, and it's stuff that we didn't really need to see.
hmm
The game's going to be out in a couple of years. We know it's coming. We know it's GTA, so we kind of know what to expect. Yeah, we don't really gain very much from seeing this because the game that we're
Yeah,
going to be seeing 2 years from now is probably going to be very different than
yeah,
the glimpses that we got in in this little section. And yeah, the leaks lately are ridiculous. There was another story of a YouTuber that was using his contacts to leak information about the Assassin's Creed games, and it's just like,
yeah, yeah. From like a
what?
separate Twitter account, right?
Right.
Like,
It's bizarre. And
uh
you're doing this for just clout at that point, which is really weird. And you're really
yeah.
not gaining much of anything from that. And as a gaming public, I really don't think we're gaining anything from that either. The fact that,
hmm
man, most of the recent big announcements have gotten leaked before the announcements actually happen takes the wind out of the sails of so many of those. It's like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
cool. I knew that was happening like 2 or 3 days ago, or oh, this leaked this morning. Like, I feel like it's becoming more and more prevalent. And it really sucks because there's not a whole lot of surprises anymore. And it's all the more surprising when something actually does show up where it's like, oh my God,
hmm
where did that come from? I had no idea.
Like Pikmin.
Yeah.
Pikmin, we that coming out of nowhere last week was super exciting. Or all the Like a Dragon stuff. Like we that what wrestler had leaked one image of Like a Dragon 8, but those other two games we didn't know coming here. Yeah, stuff like that's exciting. And then like Street Fighter. Street Fighter 6 roster leaked months ago. And so it got to the point where Capcom, we're gonna talk about this later, was just like, here's the roster. This is the roster at launch. Because you basically already know. And it's like, yeah, it's just not surprising. It's why Smash Brothers revealed their entire roster before the game came out. Sakurai said, "Yeah, we're going to show you every fighter. There's not going to be any hidden fighters in the game because it just leaks. Like, there's just no way to keep surprises. So companies just need to get out in front of it." And then I feel like that's leading to a point where unless you completely stay off the internet, which I don't know many people who get very excited about games and play lots of games that do just stay entirely off the internet, you know a ton about a game before it comes out now. And it's like, yeah, I just don't like that that's kind of the point that we're at. Like, I'm sure part of it was because we were kids, so we weren't as plugged in to even the smaller presence of the internet back then. But gosh, like playing Smash Bros. Melee and just like, oh, a new challenger approaches. Oh my god, Mewtwo's in this game. Like, I had no idea Mewtwo is in this game, and I'm fighting him right now to unlock him. Like, surprises like that just don't happen anymore. Mario Kart, we see every track before it comes out. It's never like, oh, what's this track gonna be? It's like, no, you know them all, and it's like that's just the culture we live in, and I guess we just always need more information about things. Yeah, people are complaining about the Zelda trailer, and they're like, "Oh man, I didn't see enough to convince me." And I'm like, "Do you need more to convince you that this game's going to be awesome? Like, Breath of the Wild was awesome, and this is a sequel that they've been working on for 5 years. Like, do you want them to show you everything?" And some people do. That's just how some people operate. Like, I need to see a large chunk of gameplay in the sky. I don't need to see another millisecond of that game to know that I'm going to buy it. It's just like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the constant need for information all the time. And Nintendo Direct happens, and people are like, "When's the next one?" I'm just kind of like,
Yep.
I'm over that. I'm over that a little bit.
You just gotta pick a couple of games that you really want to play, and then you're just like, all right, those are going to be
Yeah,
on the docket, and then those get you through until the next one.
yeah,
Find it relatively easy to just keep on rolling along until the next one comes out.
hmm
In terms of getting more details for games, I think that entirely depends on which game it is. Some of these games,
yes,
they come in a series, a long running series, like, all right, I know what I'm getting into here. And then other games is
hmm
like, okay, I really need to see more. Like, I don't know what this
like
game
Saints Row.
is, or right. Yeah, you really need to see more of it to be able to make that
hmm
decision. But in certain instances, yeah, they really show you the entire game. It's like, all right, well, what's the
Yeah,
point of playing this? I've seen some of the final cutscenes. Maybe I didn't know they were the final cutscenes then, but when I play it, there they
hmm
are, or late game content. I don't know if you need to show all that stuff.
it's like Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak showed off every new monster besides the final boss in pre-release coverage. And there were 4 or 5 that they didn't show off. And I remember when reviews dropped, it was like, and there's still a few surprises. And then that got edited out because between when the reviews dropped and when the game came out, they
Ooh,
dropped a new trailer that showed them all. And it's like,
no surprises.
no, there aren't. No, there's none. Like, yeah, you knew every monster going in, and I feel like it's tough because we are such enthusiasts. We do a weekly podcast. We are covering and looking at these things every day, and it's like some of the best gaming experiences I have had personally in my life are games I knew nothing about going in. When we played Monster Hunter World, the three of us, the early hours of that game, we had no idea what we were going to fight next. We had no idea the scale of different monster types that we would encounter in that game. So you'd launch into a new mission, a cutscene would start, and it'd be like, "Whoa, look at this thing you've never seen before." And that's that you can't replicate that experience because now it's like in following Monster Hunter games, one, I just know the series now, so I know pretty much every monster that's ever been, and two, I now follow the series and they show me everything. And it's like I'm just I wish I could be like this where I just unplug from a game. So what I'm trying to do with Sonic Frontiers, right? Where you aren't talking about it as much. I'm not watching trailers. I know we have one story about it this week, but I didn't watch the trailer associated with this story. Like I'm trying as hard as I can to just not watch stuff for this anymore. But it's just really hard because even when you mute stuff on Twitter, stuff finds a way through, and it's difficult to stay away from anything. It took a miracle to not get spoiled on The Last of Us Part 2 a couple years ago when that thing had leaked, and I managed to not get spoiled, and I'm very glad about that. But it took a miracle. Everybody knew what happened in that game before it came out, and the story is the thing in that game. Yeah, it's just a bummer.
You know, it was impressive. I didn't get spoiled on Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and I finally saw it.
You saw it?
I have seen it.
When? Why didn't we talk about this?
I forgot.
Did you like it?
Recently. It was good.
It
Yeah,
was
I
good.
enjoyed it. We can do a spoiler cast or something a little bit later on, but
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing where I'm honestly surprised that I didn't get spoiled on some of the later stuff because that thing's been out for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah.
But that is incredibly hard to do. And in other instances, you realize how easy it is for something to just slip through the cracks. You're scrolling on Twitter, you click on some sort of post that's really like innocuous and doesn't really say anything. Scroll down the first reply, boom,
Yep.
mega spoiler on something. It's like, oh my God, like
Yep.
really? Or you just see a video out of nowhere. It's hard. And especially if you're on multiple channels, if you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, if you're on a couple of these other places, it's nearly impossible because it can
Mhm.
get you from all these different angles. Yeah, we talk about the Sonic movie a little bit later,
All
dropping
right.
that.
How
Yeah,
long
so
ago? Like this week or longer?
yeah, within the last week. It was
Oh, okay.
quite recent. Quite recent.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We can talk about that
So
later.
new
Yeah, this
O2 Sonic spoiler cast.
yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that. um yeah, so GTA 6 footage leaks really sucks.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something that doesn't suck as hard. So this has not been confirmed, but there's
That
a
was an
possibility.
amazing transition.
There's a possibility that Sony is working on a detachable disk drive. So it sounds like this is going to come with a new model or a new model with it bundled in, and it will also be sold separately. It will hook up to the USB port on the back. Assumedly, you should be able to use the digital version if it runs on the USB to be able to plug it in to the old one. I would hope. Um, I would hope.
Maybe. Maybe. You bought into the digital one. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
If they're
We'll see.
building a detachable disk drive, I would assume that it would work with their non
Mhm.
for a disk drive that hooks in. You would assume
Yeah.
that they would make it work for their digital consoles.
I would
But
also
at the
assume that PSVR games would be backwards compatible with
and
PSVR
it,
too.
it is not. That is true. But
Yeah.
I think this is a good move in the future if this is true. That if someone say wants to buy in at a lower cost with the digital edition, and assumedly at the very least, once that comes out, the digital version will be compatible.
Mhm.
That later down the road, they can make that decision to buy a disk drive if they so choose, which I think is
Mhm.
something that we talked about with the Xbox Series S that would have been a really nice feature to have, and maybe they're working on that as well. But just to have that option out there, so that if you buy into that digital console, you're not completely beholden to that. If you do want to change and have a disk drive, having the option to have a one that plugs into the USB port is really nice, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and then just I don't know. I could see them phasing out both current PS5s that they're selling. Like if this is a new model, maybe this is kind of the equivalent of like a Slim. Like this is the redesign. This report says that it's going to have a new chassis and look different. So maybe this phases out the current disc edition and the current digital edition, and this is the one that you can buy. Like maybe that's how it is. So they don't have to work on manufacturing two SKUs anymore. PS5s are becoming easier to find, but it would probably be easier to allocate resources to just one instead of two. So maybe this becomes the PS5 that you can buy is the one with this, and it would look nicer. It would look nicer. I don't think I'd prefer it. I don't think I would like to have this USB thing that I have to plug in and put my discs in through that. But the digital PS5 does look nicer than our PS5s with the little
Yeah.
bump for the disk drive. Like that is kind of you can tell it was designed without that in mind, and they're like, "Hey, we'll slap this on because we still need to have
Yep.
discs." So it could look nicer, but yeah, I think that this could mean they phase out the old editions, and this becomes like the de facto PS5 model. That if you're walking into a store to buy one, this is what you walk out with.
Yeah, that would make sense. It'd be very weird to have the digital edition alongside this version, even the disc edition as well. I feel like this could just serve the needs of both,
Yeah,
really. But they could
How much
keep
is
a
it
2
going to
SKU
cost,
if they
though?
want.
How much
I
is it
have
going to
no
cost?
idea.
Because usually a Slim is cheaper than when it launched, but they're raising the PS5 price in most territories. I bet it stays at just 500.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that they would raise prices on the new model.
yeah.
Yeah, because precedent is that it comes in at a cheaper cost from that original model.
Yeah.
So I think that along with them raising the price in other territories would be a really bad double whammy look for them, I think.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah. But I think this is a really good move for digital consoles. I kind of hope that Xbox goes in that direction because, to be honest, that would push me more towards buying a Series S because it is a really good entry point. But knowing myself and liking the ability to have discs, it would be nice to have that in the back of my mind that if I ever wanted to, I could just buy one and it's there.
Mhm.
Like it's just a nice thing to have in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I still have a ton of 360 games that I would be able to just plug in and play if they released a disc drive for the Series S. So that would be super nice. But I'm not expecting it, but it would be a really nice boon if it just showed up one day. So that would be cool.
Yeah. Moving on from that, you alluded to this. PSVR 2 has gotten another trailer. And alongside that, they have confirmed that it is not compatible with the original slate of PSVR games. So Logan, what are you doing with that big library? You still haven't gotten your little dongle, right?
No, I never got my dongle. They're very expensive. They're very hard to get. And yeah, it's just sucks. This just sucks. It's like there's a ton of PSVR games I've been waiting kind of to play, assuming that I was never going to get a PSVR 2 at launch, but assuming I would eventually pick one up and then be able to play all these games. It is very different technology, so I guess I get it. And maybe there will be upgrades or something like that to the next gen versions. But it is a bummer that I guess how poorly planned this feels. The fact that you do need a dongle to play your PSVR on PS5 and your PSVR games aren't going to work on the PSVR 2, which will be easier on PS5. It's like I was going to sell my PS4 Pro. Like I don't have a need for it anymore. Now that's not really the case because I still have this PSVR without the cord to make it compatible on my PS5. And it's like, so if I sell the PS4 right now, it's essentially my PSVR is essentially useless. It's just a bummer. Like there's so many games, and the PSVR is it is kind of a hassle to play. Like you're using the PS Move controllers from the PS3 that have horrible battery life. Like mine, especially. I bought mine used, and the battery life is just atrocious. And yeah, and you have to have this camera set up, and everything about the PSVR 2 just looks so much more convenient. But yeah, not being able to play like Astro's Play or Astro Bot Rescue Mission on PSVR 2. That game is so good, and it's going to be stranded on PSVR 1. It's just a shame. Like, there's a lot of good games that are exclusive to PSVR like that are just kind of getting left behind here. I maybe they'll work on something to make these things compatible with PSVR 2. Maybe they'll charge you again. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's
But
Sony's
yeah,
MO.
it's a disappointment. It makes
Yeah,
me far less likely to buy PSVR 2
yeah,
ever.
when they had to have this dongle for you to be able to even use your PSVR on your PS5, it kind of led a little bit more credence to the fact that PSVR 2 would kind of just replace it outright
Yeah.
because it's already so hard to use that it's like, okay, this is just going to become the next one. And for
Yeah.
those couple of people that were able to get the dongle, there you go. You can play with PSVR 1 if you want. Yeah, that
Boo.
is really weird to think about now that we know that it's not going to be backwards compatible.
Not a super big fan of Sony so far this gen. Let me just say, not huge on them. It's kind of feeling kind of PS3 gen-ish. They're uh they're not really caring about the consumer like you kind of felt like they did more in the PS4 generation. They're maybe getting a little more confident and arrogant in some of these pricing decisions and other things, and it's like, man, $70 games. Honestly, a real lack of good PS5 content from Sony Interactive Entertainment. Like, what have we had this year? I get Horizon and God of War, and that's kind of it. I don't think I'm forgetting
Yeah.
anything. Game in February, a game in November, and nothing in the 9 months in between those two. Yeah, not been a big fan of Sony, and I was a huge fan of Sony in the PS4 generation. We all were. It was amazing, and I guess I just kind of feel like that peak is over. I don't know how you feel,
Yeah.
but
I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago. I am still consistently surprised at how little I use my PS5. It
yep.
is a Netflix machine for me. Since I got it, I been half a year now?
Okay,
Think
yeah,
about half a year.
yeah,
I have played one full game on it, Horizon Forbidden West.
yeah,
The other
yeah.
two, Intergrade is a small DLC that is not big,
Mhm,
and Astro's Playroom, which is great, but that's a pack-in title. It's a shorter experience. That's all I've
mhm,
played,
yeah.
and
Granted, there are other things that you have not played that you should, but you don't want to pay the full price, which is
right,
fair.
and some
Yeah,
of the games here are still nearly that expensive. Ghost of Tsushima is still going
yeah,
for about $60 around here. Ratchet and Clank is a little lower, around like 40. But even then, that was always a game that I'm not a huge Ratchet and Clank fan. So that would have been a game that in the PS4 generation I would have picked up for 20 or $25.
yep, mhm,
And I felt like that did a really good job of getting people into these series. Like,
mhm,
oh, I'll give this a shot for $20. And then you play and it's like, oh my God, this is really good. Maybe you're more likely to pick it up on launch or around launch next time around. But
yeah,
I'm just sitting here waiting for something to get a little bit cheaper to pick it up, and it's just not happening.
yeah, yeah. Yep, it's not been a great generation, and I don't really know what's on the horizon that's gonna change that for us because we don't care about God of War. We're not gonna be talking about
I'm
God of
gonna
War
play
on this
Ishin.
show.
I'm gonna play Ishin on my
Yeah,
PS5. That'll be fun. I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
could play that on PS4, but it will be a better experience on PS5.
I guess I'm more
But
talking like Sony
in terms of
themselves.
Sony, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. There's
like I'll play Spider-Man 2 next year. Apparently, we haven't heard anything about it, and that game supposedly comes out next year. But beyond that,
yeah,
I guess I will play again. It's a PlayStation exclusive, but it's not Sony. I'm very excited for Final Fantasy next year. Both of them. I'm excited for both 16 and 7 Rebirth next year. I'm gonna play Star Wars on my PS5, Star Wars Jedi Survivor on my PS5. But again, I could play that on Xbox. That's like what exclusives are there? That's like what Sony I feel like is known for. Xbox has Game Pass. They're supposed to have exclusives. They don't really yet either. And
we'll
then
see how
and
those
then
Bethesda
Sony
games
has the
go.
exclusives. Yeah, I just don't know what's there. What's there? Yeah, but
Not
Star
not
Wars
not a
is like
ton.
Star Wars is a big, finally one of the first big third party next gen exclusives. I think is not coming to PS4 and Xbox One. So I'm excited that some third parties are finally making games that aren't coming out on those. But yeah, even like a Dragon 8 is like coming to
Yeah.
PS4. Like, oh
Well,
my
to
gosh.
be fair, they have done that for years.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
supported the PS3. Yakuza 0 ran on PS3, which
That's
is
nuts.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
So them, Atlas, they're known for that.
hmm
So I'm kind of used to it. But
hmm
even then, it is still a little bit surprising that more developers are still going PS4 and PS5. Maybe that's because that install base isn't enough for them yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, until we get a steady stream of PS5 games, I don't know. It's still not going to feel like we're fully into the gen. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, I
because
could just
I'm gonna
boot
play
that up on my
Frontiers.
PS4.
Gonna play Frontiers on PS5. That's a PS4 game. I'm gonna play Crisis Core on my PS5, but that's a PS4 game. Like all this stuff is like, well, how is this different than just the number on the home menu when you boot it up? Like when it says which console gen it's from. I don't know. It's first world problems though.
Yeah, it's definitely been a disappointment. I mean, on the one hand, I'm glad I have the console so I don't have to deal with any crap. And when a game finally comes along, like Ishin, that I'm excited
Mhm.
for, I can play it, running the best that it can. But it still constantly surprises me how little I play on it and how I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here. I'm hopping between 2 or 3 titles on my Switch right now, and I've been constantly doing that for months, and the PS5's just hanging out there until I wanna
Yeah.
watch a show or a movie.
Because right now the Switch is in that peak. It's in that era that we're gonna look back on and be like, dang, this thing just got game after game that was great.
Yeah. But Switch was also able to have a first year that was absolutely insane,
Yep.
which I think was able to carry them through a little bit of a lull after that first year and kind of keep it up a
Yeah.
bit until it really picked back up again.
Yeah.
But
2018 wasn't great except for like Smash, but that was in December. Most of
yeah.
2018 was
But I
not
mean,
that
if you were
great.
playing Zelda, Mario, Splatoon, Mario Kart and
Xenoblade.
stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
Xenoblade, yeah, there was a lot for you to play.
Yeah.
And here, there's just not a whole lot. And this is what I was worried about with Sony when you have these huge blockbuster games. If you're not interested in the game that's coming out, you're not going to be playing anything on it because that's it,
Yep.
kind of.
And I've been saying for a while, I'm getting a little burned out on their formula. Like we've talked about it before. I'm like, man, I feel like I play a Nintendo exclusive and they are very different. Like Xenoblade's a 100-hour RPG, and then Splatoon is an online multiplayer shooter, and they're all different. And it's like God of War, Horizon, Spider Man, third person, open world,
Naughty Dog.
action adventure. I'm like, I know what they are. Ghost of Tsushima. These games are all a little too similar. Yeah. Yep.
It's
The
going to
love
catch up at
affair's
some
a little
point.
bit over. But whenever, hopefully, and then Naughty Dog, their next thing is Last of Us multiplayer, which I'm like, really
After
can't.
just coming out with Last of Us Part
I
1, which
know. I'm
I
like,
do
ugh,
not care about.
I love The Last of Us. I'm a little tired of it becoming this thing that's just milked. Like it almost ruins its authenticity to me. Where when it's like, yeah, it is this special game, and I really like the stories of these games, but at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's a critically acclaimed game. People love it. I don't need you to release it over and over. I don't need to hear every year about how great it is because I know because I played it 2 years ago on PS4 and it was fine. And it's like, man, the last how many releases from Naughty Dog are going to be Last of Us because it was part two, and then it was part one, and then it's going to be this multiplayer, and then I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a part two director's cut for $70. And it's like, God, when are we going to get the new IP they're working on? Probably not until the tail end of the PS5, maybe at this point. Yeah,
And with development the way it is, that's kind of something that you might have to come to expect from some of these studios.
yeah.
Is that so much work goes into these games that you're not going to have a situation like you did on PS3 when 3 Uncharted games just busting out the door. Here you go.
I was just going to bring that up because we just passed the 15th anniversary of Uncharted 1. Like it is the series 15th anniversary this week. And we've already done Ode to Uncharted like
Happy
4
birthday.
times. So yeah, happy birthday to Uncharted. But
He's old to get
I was
old enough to get his permit, right? Or
I
14.
was thinking about this off mic, and I was like, Uncharted 1, 2007, Uncharted 2, 2009, Uncharted 3, 2011, Golden Abyss 2012. Oh my God. 5 years, 4 games. And it's not like this situation I just complained about with Naughty Dog, where it's like Last of Us 2, Last of Us 1 for the third time, multiplayer spin-off that's not a full game. It's like, no, this is a full trilogy of games and a spin-off in the span of 5 years. It just doesn't happen anymore. We've talked about it before with like Zelda. It's like between Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker was 4 years. And now it's been 5.5 years since the last game. It's just nuts what the world we're living in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever going to change because games just get bigger and bigger. And
As they
take
get
longer and
bigger,
longer to
I think
make.
it's just going to get, it's just going to get as long to make. And we're going to get to a point where you build one game for the current gen and boop, there's the next generation. It's like, well,
Yeah.
can we really make it off the bones that we made the last one off of? Because now we're in the new gen and people expect it to be even more gorgeous than the last one.
People will complain when there's a reused animation of Aloy rappelling down from a cliff. And it's like, why does that matter to you? You use Majora's Mask as a game rebuilt with literally entirely the same assets, just remixed. And that was, no one cared. And now it's like, wow, you're reusing an animation? That's lazy. And it's like, no, it's not. God, it's just the expectations are ridiculous.
If you want the game to come out in 10 years instead of 5 years, maybe they'll remake everything for you.
Yeah, start over. Yeah.
All right. Anyways, moving on from that, I want to talk about Sonic for a little bit, about as long as the Prime trailer was. So Sonic Prime gets another little teaser trailer. This thing's coming out in winter, so this is coming out pretty soon on Netflix. And it was a 40-second teaser. We got Sonic. He was fighting Shadow. Big the Cat was there. Eggman was there. Sonic was fighting a robot, and that's about it.
You forgot the most important part. Green Hill Zone, baby.
Oh.
Gosh, why can't we get away from this place? I did see a funny tweet. I don't know if you saw this one. It was said seeing Shadow in Green Hill Zone was weird because we're only supposed to see him in outer space or real life Chicago. And I thought that was really funny because he's only ever in like the hardcore areas, and now it's like
That's
he's
him
running around in Green Hill Zone. Yeah, I'm excited to watch the show. I think it'll be good, but I am so exhausted of Green Hill Zone. And that's really my only thought on this trailer. Was I was just watching it and I'm like, it's not that interesting. It's like, let's set everything Mario in World 1-1. They don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. I really can't fully tell what type of show it is from this trailer or from the last one. I feel like it's from this, it kind of feels more like along the lines of the Sonic Boom TV show, which is not necessarily bad. I think people like that show just fine. But yeah, both of the teaser that initial teaser trailer was hilarious in how it showed absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and this one shows slightly more than that. But
yeah,
it's coming out in winter, so get hyped for that.
Big year for Sonic.
Really is. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Big game. Last little bit of news. Zach's not here to talk about it. Monster Hunter Rise update. Logan, are you excited about it? You're talking. Wasn't that big.
I'm excited about one thing. This game had a game-breaking bug recently that they discovered. Basically, just if you saved, it would not save, and it would basically corrupt your save randomly. And there were some fixes to it. Basically, if you had too many guild cards, which you get from interacting with other players, maybe that could like overload it or something like that. But Zach and I were just like, we're not messing with this. We are just not going to play this till it's fixed. So with this update, which comes out in 7 days, it's getting fixed. So I'm very excited because we haven't played in like a month because this thing has been known for like a month. And so we have not touched it. So I'm excited to get back into the game in general because of that. But the 3 new monsters, it's Flaming Espinoffs, so he's fiery, which has been the theme of Sunbreak. There's been like 4 fire variations in this game. And then Violet Mizutsune, which is like the same. And then Risen Chameleos, which is, again, pretty much the same monster. So 3 new variations, no new monsters, which is kind of a disappointment. But still new content, but nothing earth-shattering. Iceborne had really cool updates with new monsters. So far, this has all just been variations. Unclear if that's going to change because the roadmap kind of makes it look like this is what it is, which is fine. It's just not as exciting to hop back in when it's like, okay, we're going to go fight something that's just a different color of this thing that we already fought.
Yeah,
it's not as exciting as a new thing, but it's still new content, still new stuff to do. So that's exciting. But most excited that the save breaking issue is
crazy that it took them that long to fix it.
If you could pick one game to not have lose your save on, it'd be Monster Hunter. Like that is just the most that's devastating.
Multi-hundred hours.
Yep.
Ideally not. Let's get into some TGS stuff. So TGS was going on a little bit after we recorded last week. So we were talking a lot about Yakuza, which is now Like a Dragon. We were talking about this last week. I don't think it was fully confirmed at that point, but it was kind of assumed, at least from us, that Like a Dragon was going to be changing over. All the material was saying Like a Dragon 8, even the English versions, and Sega has come out and confirmed that it is being rebranded to Like a Dragon. So there you go. Yakuza is dead. And I understand it. They were talking about how, with a game like Ishin Yakuza, it's not a Yakuza story in the sense that it has no ties to the modern day Yakuza. And I think that if they're planning to do more of these spin-offs in the future, Like a Dragon is just much easier to put alongside some of those. But it'll still be kind of weird, especially because they're calling this next game Like a Dragon 8, considering that there's Yakuza 0 through 6, then Yakuza Like a Dragon, and then Like a Dragon 8. And they are connected. Like they are connected. So that'll be a little bit confusing, I think. But I understand why they did it.
I know it's interesting. They're like a dragon's a jumping on point. Yeah, not really. It doesn't really seem
We're
like
coming
that
back.
at all. Yeah. It's not like the 90s anymore where there's no internet and so you just wait till a new game pops up on the shelf and it's like what the heck's Like a Dragon? I've never heard of that. Like we were talking about earlier, everyone's so plugged into the internet that if you like Yakuza, you'll know what Like a Dragon is. So it's a good move. It makes sense. Um I don't like what they said about not bringing it to Switch though. It's a lazy lame excuse, Kevin.
Yeah, so they were talking about Switch. If you know Yakuza at all, you know they have tried bringing the games over specifically one time when they brought over 1 and 2 on Wii U. It sold absolutely horribly. I have
Do
a
you have
copy
that
of
game?
it. I do have a
Yes.
copy. So they did it once. It flopped because it's on the Wii U. Unless you're one of Nintendo's flagship franchises, you are bound to flop on there. And
And
they
it wasn't
haven't come back.
localized, right? Japan only on the
Japan
Wii U.
only.
That didn't
Yep.
come over here.
I mean, because at that point, Yakuza hadn't had its rebirth yet. Like a Dragon hadn't had its
Mhm.
rebirth. Zero hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So there was really no point at that time. So they have not put a game on a Nintendo console before that or after that. And they were asked about it and they said no, which I can understand if they were saying that the games would not run on there, which they did not say. They instead said that the family friendly identity of the Switch clashes with Yakuza's underground criminal tones.
That's such a lame excuse. Just say you don't want to put the resources into making a worse version of your game. Like, yeah, it would not be the place to play it, right? It'd be one of those cases where it's just for people that can only play it on Switch, is why you'd be putting it there. Like, you wouldn't play these games on Switch if they
No,
came there. No way.
no.
So just say that. That's fine. It's like Resident Evil's going to be on Switch.
Resident Evil's
I know
on
that's a
there.
different
Doom is
company.
on there.
Yeah, like come on. There's plenty of mature games on Switch. It's just a lame excuse to say that that's the reason why.
Yeah, if they had just come out and said we do not think that we can get it in a state on
Hmm.
Switch that we are proud of, like
Yeah.
okay, like that's fine. If you're really putting in all the effort to making these look really great on PS5 and Xbox Series X and you don't want to bring it to Switch for that reason, okay. I understand that. But
And
this
you
reason
crank them
is
out, right? Like it makes sense.
yeah.
You're making 3 games in the next what, year and a half, 2 years? Like it makes sense that you're not going to waste some of your resources to do that. And I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. Like this to me is just like I don't know why they felt the need to say this. Unless that's what they truly believe. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that's what they actually think.
But I mean, I guess it could be a joke. It's
Yeah.
be a weird joke.
Yeah. It
um
is weird.
and especially in the Japanese market, the Switch is absolutely dominating
Mhm.
PlayStation and of course Xbox, but
Really?
it would really behoove them to at least try and bring it to Switch and see what happens. Test
Mhm.
the waters because
Bayonetta is a Switch exclusive. That is not a family-friendly game.
the install base is so big that you would assume that
Mhm.
there is at least some audience there that would play it there.
Yeah.
At least give it a test run, but they are not even entertaining the idea.
Yeah.
And
It's bizarre.
disappointing. You were talking about earlier that you are trying to avoid stuff on Sonic Frontiers. We've got a little tidbit from TGS.
Rumor roundup.
Rumor roundup, it's back. That Supersonic is not going to be relegated to a final boss. This is going to be more of an in-game mechanic, and that there are certain bosses that you need to face as Supersonic. He'll have a different move set. What do you think about Supersonic having more utility than in the past?
It's cool. Usually he just shows up for a jank final fight, so I'm really excited about that idea. I think that it's cool that there's going to be some bosses in the overworld that it's like you got to stay away from them or you're just going to get stomped just by showing up. I think it will maybe refresh some of these areas that like you get supersonic maybe at a midpoint through the game and then you go back through these areas and there's new things to do. I think that's a really cool idea. I'm all in on it. I think it sounds really cool. I'm excited to see what the moveset is, how much it differs, if it is jank like Supersonic usually is. But yeah, combat is still the biggest question mark for me about this game. How is that going to work? Is it going to be fun, or is it going to feel button mashy, repetitive, broken? Because it easily could in a Sonic game. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that Supersonic will have more of a presence because he is always such a big deal. And it's like in some games you don't even see him unless you get like the true ending. And so I think it's cool that that will really set Frontiers apart. I think make it feel even more unique. That I don't think there's any other game where Supersonic shows up before the end. So I think it's a cool decision.
Yeah, and it could be a fresh coat of paint while you're playing to be able to go back and play certain things with Supersonic with the different move set and kind of
Yeah.
change things up and maybe explore around in the overworld a bit. I don't know if his movement will be significantly different,
Hmm.
or if there's going to be a timer or something on that. But I think that could open things up to experiencing the world in different ways, depending on if you're playing as regular Sonic or Supersonic.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have more utility for him because it's such a big deal. Like, oh my God, you're Supersonic, you're a god now, and it's over.
Yeah.
You did it. You did the final boss. Great. And you
Uh-huh.
don't feel like a god because he feels so awful to play in some of
Yep.
those games. I do hope that they make him actually fun to play as, because
Yeah.
sometimes that doesn't happen as much.
Yeah. And he's not even in Forces. He's in as like free DLC, but he doesn't appear in the main story of Forces. What a joke.
How was that DLC?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh God. Couple other smaller bits. Street Fighter 6 got a trailer showing off a lot of its single player content. I don't know if you saw much of that, but the world looks really good, actually. Like
Yeah.
the areas that they showed off were quite varied. Like, to be honest, I was watching, I was like, is this the same open world? Like, some of these areas look distinct enough from one to the next that it kind of feels like completely different areas. But
Yeah.
they show off some exploration. You're fighting some of the characters there. It sounds like you can learn moves from them and build up your character. They showed off some of the character customization, and that it seems relatively free form. Like, you can make a bunch of different characters. I thought this trailer was pretty good.
Yeah. This game looks awesome. Like this game looks just really amazing with how bare bones Street Fighter 5 was at launch. And then remember that Capcom leak that happened what like 2 years ago at this point. It was leaked that Street Fighter is already getting like ultra like in a year and a half and then another version in like 3 years and it's like god, is this going to be the same thing? But this is a huge package for its launch. I think that the single player mode looks really cool. They also said that like you'll use some moves to like clear obstacles and things in the overworld. So that'll be kind of cool, unlocking new areas based on your progression. And it's not just like a bare bones hub world to just navigate from fight to fight. Like you actually interact with it, and it looks really cool. Yeah, I think this game looks awesome. This is something. It is coming to PS4. This is something I'm excited to play on my PS5. Like I'm gonna pick up this game and
Are you going to
probably
pick it
try to
up
get into it.
on or around launch?
I think so. I think that's how much I'm looking forward to it at this point. Like Street Fighter is a series I've always wanted to get into. I picked up the collection on Switch for like $20 and spent some time playing around that and never got super into it. But yeah, this like everything they're saying about this game is appealing to me. An in-depth single player mode, so it's not just online or bust. An easier control scheme, so you don't have to learn all the insane button combos. Like, yeah, it just looks really cool, and it's so stylish and vibrant. Like, I think this game looks amazing, and this trailer just solidified that. It looks great.
Yeah, really good. Got me thinking about it a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be playing it on launch, but
Whoa.
seeing that, it was like, oh, maybe it's something to keep on my radar,
Yeah.
especially like once it comes out. See how well it performs, see if people like it, and then maybe hop in a little bit later just to
Yeah.
experience that single player world, which I think is the reason to have that, because I
Hmm.
don't care about any sort of like online battles or any of that. But if you give me compelling single player content to do, you can get me in the door,
Yep.
and I think that'll work for a fair amount of people. And last little bit of news: Suikoden 1 and 2 will be getting remasters. Nice to see, since these games are very popular and very hard to come by. It's
Yeah.
been a long time. Good to see Konami actually coming
Konami.
out and making games again.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're not fully redone. This isn't like an HD 2D thing. This is more of like kind of a cleanup thing, but it looks nice.
Hmm.
Definitely something that I want to keep my eye on. I've heard Suikoden 2 is fantastic.
Yeah.
I
Looks
find
cool.
I find the timing kind of funny because you have Eiyuden Chronicle coming out, which is this spiritual successor where it was
Yeah.
supposed to be this big deal because Konami's not going to do anything with Suikoden, and then here they come rolling out with remasters for 1 and 2.
Isn't it weird how that works out? Like you've got Callisto Protocol and then Dead Space like within a month and a half of each other. That's kind of the same thing there. It's like Dead Space is back twice, and it's like this
Yeah.
is kind of the same
Which one
thing.
do I go for?
Yeah.
Yeah, funny
Yeah.
how that works. But yeah, that is a lot of the main stuff from TGS.
EGS was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
some good
cool.
stuff there.
No Ace Attorney. That's usually TGS is the show where that thing shows up. So that was a little bit of a bummer.
Still waiting
Because
on that leak.
from that same
True.
Capcom leak, they said Great Ace Attorney was coming out, and it did. They said Ace Attorney 7 was coming out at some point. So I'm still waiting on that. And they also said 4, 5, 6 is in the works as a trilogy, which I know you're waiting for because
God,
you're
I am.
busting out
Yeah.
the 3DS to play those games.
Speaking of the 3DS, I don't think I mentioned this before. I think my battery is dying on that. I have to buy a
oh
replacement
my
battery.
gosh,
So
that sucks.
weird little side tangent before we get into the Ode 2. We're going to be talking about spinoffs, like Great Ace Attorney. Yeah, I was just playing it on a bus ride recently, just playing Mario Tennis. It was a good time. And it just shut off. Just straight up shut off. Battery was full and it completely
Oh my
shut
gosh.
down.
That
So I
sucks.
turned it back on and I was like, maybe, you try and give reasons as to why it would shut down. It's like, oh, maybe my hand was on the power button randomly. Like
Yeah.
maybe. So I booted it up again, played for another 5 to 10 minutes, shut down again. So
Dang.
I think that
Okay.
I'm gonna have to buy a battery on online or something. Probably
Yeah. Well, you've got a new one here that you bought that you just don't
it's
have
a
yet.
little far away from me.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Ripperino
Totally.
to my 3DS battery.
Dang.
That thing is dead. But yeah, let's get into our Ode 2 here. We're talking about spinoffs this week. We got some spinoffs in the news. Ishin is going to be coming out. We're just talking about Great Ace Attorney, another spinoff. So here we've got a list of some of our favorite, or in some cases, not so favorite spinoffs, as well as a spinoff game that we want to see in the future. So Logan, do you want to run through your list of spinoffs and a spinoff that you want to see in the future?
Yeah. Judgment is a Like a Dragon spinoff. Still feels
Not
weird to
Yakuza
say.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really liked the first Judgment. I was happy to jump into it because there's no baggage of the other series attached to it, so I could just play and enjoy that standalone series. And it has a sequel, which I still have not finished, but need to, and Lost Judgment. But yeah, I really liked that game. For the most part, didn't like all its investigation segments. Those were not the greatest, especially the tailing was
Not good.
really rough. But the rest of the game, the story was really really good, especially that last few hours, like the last 5 hours pushed to the end was super awesome and memorable. The Zelda spin-offs are I like pretty much all of them. Hyrule Warriors, specifically Age of Calamity, I'm actually playing through that again right now, and it is as awesome as I remember it. That got runner-up for my game of the year in 2020, I believe. And yeah, is still super, super awesome. Sometimes it's a slideshow, but if you can get past that, if you can get past the significant frame drops, that game is really, really amazing. And I was looking at the roster. I never played Definitive Edition of the first Hyrule Warriors on Switch. The roster for that thing is just nuts. Like some of the characters it pulls from is like so crazy. Like, oh, this one lady from this side quest that is completely skippable in Twilight Princess is just a playable character in Hyrule Warriors. Like, there's just some random pulls that are super awesome. And then Cadence of Hyrule is also great. And I love Link's crossbow training. This isn't my official pick for the spinoff I want, but Cadence of Hyrule is really cool. But I would love just a traditional, like a theater rhythm Legend of Zelda. Like Final Fantasy has theater rhythm. It has a new one coming out. I would love to see like a traditional rhythm game for Zelda because the music in that series is so good. And I'd like to see a full dedicated rhythm game for that. But Cadence of Hyrule is really cool and a completely unexpected game that just dropped a few years ago. Great Ace Attorney.
Really good.
Like it more than the main games. It is my favorite Ace Attorney game. Is Great Ace Attorney 2. Really fantastic. I'm probably going to play Like a Dragon Ishin because it's just this spin-off in this 100 years earlier period, kind of similar to this, where you can just play it. I know that it's like it's like Yakuza characters are in
Yeah.
Ishin, right? But they're
So just
not
their
really
skins.
themselves.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess that's fun for Yakuza fans to be like, "Oh, I recognize them from this, and they're this completely different character now." But still seems like you can just play it and not really care about that. So yeah, I'll probably play that game because it seems kind of similar to this, like a game in the same series, similar kind of theme story, but set in this different era for Japan. So I think that's pretty cool. Captain Toad is the best Mario spinoff ever. It is amazing. Unless you count like Mario Kart, like is Mario Kart 8 a Mario spinoff at this point? Probably not. I don't think anyone would call it that.
I think it's its own
Uh,
series at this point.
yeah,
Been around
yeah.
long enough.
Like you would call the original a spinoff, but then beyond that, it's its own series probably. Like Paper Mario is a spinoff, right? It's a spinoff of Mario. But then
Yeah.
like Paper Mario 5 isn't a spinoff anymore. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how you qualify that. But Captain Toad is definitely a spinoff, and Captain Toad is awesome. I love that game. I've 100%ed it 2 times, and it's fantastic. Sonic racing games, really like them. Team Sonic Racing was fun. Danica Patrick, Kevin reminded me before
Yep.
the show, is in that
Sonic and
second.
All-Star. She is an All-Star.
She is an all-star. That is the that is the weirdest thing.
Wasn't there also
Danica
some weird,
Patrick
like,
is in that game.
it was Danica Patrick? Wasn't like Wreck-It Ralph in there?
He is in that game, yeah.
Like the most bizarro
God,
roster of
that
characters.
is weird. Because it's like all Sega characters. And then Banjo Kazooie is kind of the guest character in the Xbox version of the first one, which is an awesome guest character.
Cool ad, yeah.
It's why I bought that game on Xbox instead of Wii at the time. And then, yeah, Danica Patrick and Wreck-It Ralph. And then Team Sonic Racing has a very safe roster. Very, very
Sonic,
safe.
yeah.
Very small roster.
I no Danica
game.
Patrick and no Wreck-It Ralph. I'm not in.
That could have been its own third team. It could have been Banjo, Danica, and Wreck-It Ralph.
Just the weirdos. What a grouping that would be. I would always race as them.
Yeah, me too. I like the Sonic Racing games, though. That weekend
good,
we played
yeah.
Team Sonic Racing was a really good time. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I really like that series. I had a really great time with the Switch remake. Just super nostalgic. One of those games that's like, when that got remade, that's like, yep, that's one of those childhood games that's a day one pickup for me. And I really, really liked it on revisit also. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I'm playing that right now still with Zach. We're still chugging our way through that thing. It is a good time. Still liking the colorful world more than I feel like the drab world of what I've seen from the Borderlands
Just
series.
brown
generally.
and gray.
Brown, yeah. That Xbox 360 era brown. But Tiny Tina's is still a good time. And then lastly, I want to play Monster Hunter Stories 1 and 2. I haven't, but spin-off that I think look really cool. A kind of Pokemon spin on Monster Hunter that I do want to play, but just haven't gotten around to yet. And then I want Splatoon to branch beyond just being the Splatoon 1, 2, 3 main shooter entries. And I think a Splatoon like 2D platformer would be super cool. In my ideal world, it's like a Metroidvania where you are collecting different weapons throughout this giant world that help you traverse earlier parts of the world with backtracking. Like, oh, you found the roller. Now you can go and do these puzzles now that you have the roller, because there's so many different weapon types in Splatoon that play entirely differently. Like the slosher, it's just a paint bucket that you just dump on people, or the ink brush that behaves completely differently. Like, I think that it's kind of made to branch out into a spinoff like this where you unlock different ones and use them differently throughout the world. Because the single player campaigns do that a little bit, but you only ever have one weapon per mission. So to have a game that's like a 2D game where you can swap at any time between these weapons, like on a wheel or something like that, to change how you do combat and interact with puzzles, I just think would be really cool. And I think Splatoon is big enough that something like that would be really successful. Like Splatoon sells 10 million copies. I have to feel a spinoff would sell very well.
I feel like a spinoff's got to happen at some point with how big Splatoon is. I mean, you've already got the base games, and they already went with DLC. So maybe the next way to branch out would be some sort of spinoff. I could see a 2D version of it.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I'd play it. I'd play anything Splatoon.
Play it for $60.
Yeah, I mean, Metroid Dread is $60 and is amazing.
Yeah.
The game's awesome. So yeah, I would play that.
I'd
play a new 2D Mario for $60. Not new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, but I would play a new game.
Would you play a new Super Mario Brothers game?
Oh God,
because I would not. I would not for $60. I'm sorry, I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
I've played that before.
I would.
You would.
They're good. They're fine game. They're not bad, right? They're not. I think that the one on 3DS is a bad game. I've got as the worst Mario game by far. Like I don't think I've ever played a Mario game that is as cookie cutter basic lame as that one is. And that was the last one. That was the last new one in the series. I'm pretty sure that came out. It came out right around you.
Yeah. Besides Deluxe.
And I guess Super Mario Run is kind of. I never played that game, but I think it's probably better than New Super Mario Bros. 2.
Has at least different ideas.
I don't know, probably because it's just been so long since new 2D Mario. I think I still would, but I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see something different whenever 2D Mario makes a comeback. I think that's why it's been so
I would
long.
want that because I have no interest in going back to New Super
Yeah.
Mario Brothers. I can get that experience in so many other ways. I can get Deluxe. I could get Mario Maker 2 and play that.
Has a nice campaign. Has a nice single player campaign.
Yeah, I would not hop back in at that point. I need something new from 2D Mario.
Yeah.
Zach would hop in day one, day zero.
Yeah.
That dude is there. I don't understand.
He will not play Odyssey, but he loves the new Super Mario games. Yep.
What a guy. As for me on my spinoffs, talked about the Judgment series. The original Judgment is absolutely fantastic. One of my favorites in the entire Like a Dragon series, even though it's a spinoff. Lost Judgment, not as much, but I still think it's a really good time. And with those games, even if the main story doesn't live up, there's all the other side games and, side missions and all the other stuff that you can just do for hours and hours. So it's still a good time, even if the story is not incredible. Some other good ones before I get into my one bad one. Uncharted Lost Legacy, really enjoyed it. And I really want to go back and play it again because I played it once with Zach when it originally came out and I haven't played it again. Tempted to get that collection of 4 and Lost Legacy at some point and just go back in and have another experience of that. Because from what I remember, it was a really fun time and I kind of just want to experience it again.
It's only a $10 upgrade.
Yeah.
If you own the physical versions or digital of the old ones, it's only a $10 upgrade. So you don't even need to get the new disc.
But I don't have the old disc.
Legacy?
I don't have Lost Legacy. I have 4, but I don't have 4
I'm not
with
sure
me.
how that works. Oh, okay.
I don't think I can do that, unfortunately. That's not an option for me.
Pretty regularly. That is one that does. Yeah.
So I'd like to get back into that. Logan, you had me put this on there. Builders 2? Dragon Quest Builders 2?
Boo.
I know you do not like that game. The characterization is really bad, but I still think that the actual building mechanics are really good. And I like the whole concept of building and creating these things for people to actually be in. Like, you actually build a community for these people to live in, which I find more interesting than, say, building something in Minecraft where it's just kind of like for your own personal thing. That's different. But I really like that spin on it. And I really enjoyed building that dungeon for the villagers that we made, where they all have to go down into the depths of the earth, into their tiny rooms. With those types of games, you can make your own fun. Captain Toad, I played it this year.
What was the guy that we hated in Builders 2? That was like the main character alongside the player.
Started with like M, right, or something.
M, yeah. It's not
Mephiles.
A Kirby character. That's a Sonic character.
It's like Malrog or something.
Malroth. Malroth. God, that guy. I cannot stand that guy.
I can't build.
Yeah,
I'm so mad.
I just need to destroy. I get it. The 300th time you said it. Anyways.
Captain Toad played it this year. Really fun. I went playing through Mario 3D World. I enjoyed those little bits of what Captain Toad would turn into, and playing it for a full game. It was able to be fun for that entire runtime. It stretched out. I was impressed with that. You talked about Sonic Racing games. They're surprisingly good. Even Team Sonic Racing, which I don't think is as good as Sega and All Stars Racing, but it's still a really solid time. They're good racing games. I can recommend any of those. And then some other ones that aren't as good. Yakuza Dead Souls is not good. Not good. I just learned recently that was apparently possibly going to be it for Yakuza. And then 5 kind of just happened. They were able to like get funding for it and it came out.
Whoa!
At the very
That's
least, Dead
crazy.
Souls was kind of like how they put it, the ending of that original set of games, and that they were going to kind of move on from that, which I find really interesting because that game is
Wow.
just not good.
Yeah.
Watching some gameplay of it recently, that game is a PowerPoint presentation in some of its sections. The frame rate is so bad.
Wow.
I mean, some of the bones of a good Like a Dragon game are there. The karaoke is there. There's side missions and there's a world to explore. But man, the actual game is not good.
Uh-huh.
Not good. And then last, Saints Row has been in the news recently. Saints Row Gat Out of Hell was the most recent Saints Row game before this new one came out. It's not that great. it's it's basically taking a Saints Row game and having all of the missions be the side missions, which the side missions
Okay.
just on the side are fun enough, but when that was the entire game, it did not hold my attention as well as some of the other
Mhm.
Saints Row games. The story was interesting, and they brought back some characters, some fan favorites from previous games, which is cool. But the 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 gameplay and just kind of the gameplay loop that you were going through in Gat Out of Hell was just not particularly interesting. And then they made the Saints Row reboot, which is not good at all. They're on a
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah.
And
What
then
do
the
you
game
want?
that I want is one that existed in the past, but I don't think exists anymore, and that is a Mario RPG game. So Paper Mario, it's not an RPG anymore. Nintendo does not want to make that an RPG. So that's not what it is anymore.
Yep.
Mario and Luigi is functionally dead unless Nintendo wants to revive it in some way. But
Yep.
as of now, it's nothing's happening there. So I'd like to see an entirely new stab at a Mario RPG game that's not tied to Paper Mario or the Mario and Luigi series, just something
Mhm.
entirely new that keeps that feel of a Mario game alive. I think you would probably pull the most from Paper Mario, at least in the sense of giving it those real-time actions to do in battle, something like that, to bring it a little bit more in line with a Mario game rather than a wholly traditional JRPG style.
Mhm.
But I
Yep.
think an entirely new Mario RPG is something that I need, considering that the other two are dead at this point.
And Rabbids doesn't count. That's not close enough.
No, that's a completely different style of game.
Yeah, it's cool though. It's still kind of that different spin on Mario, but I know we both tried the original and didn't
I
really
just
do
don't
it
think that
for
style of
either of
game
us.
is something that I can really sink my teeth into
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
compared to an RPG. Yeah, I'd like to see a Mario RPG come back. All right, it's been 2 weeks since we've done a what we've been playing, so we've got a lot to get to. I've got a couple of new games that I want to talk about for a little bit here, and we've got some Xenoblade that we can talk about as well. But
Mhm.
Bear and Breakfast is finally out on Switch, and that's been most of what I've been playing over the past week, and it is really good
Awesome.
when it works.
Uh oh.
So I have had 4 crashes, which
Okay.
is not great. The frame rate is a little all over the place sometimes. So it has an autosave feature, which when the game crashes 4 times during your playthrough, it's nice to have the autosave feature because I'm not constantly saving all the time.
Secret
But
of Man all
every
over again.
oh god. But when it autosaves, the game stutters for like 2 or 3 seconds as it's autosaving, and it autosaves pretty frequently. So you're going to be kind of dealing with the stuttering every once in a while. Not too
Okay.
big a deal. The crashes are a much bigger deal to me. Um, so that's a little bit disappointing. And the menus still are not great. You can tell that this is a PC game that moved its way over to Switch. The menus just aren't intuitive. You're given so for example, let's go with cooking. Cooking has like 5 different sections. You have your ingredients, you have the section where you put the ingredients, you have a section where all of your recipes are, you have a section where you have to place cards to cook. So like there's a boil card or a roast card, and you use different cards to cook different dishes depending on how that dish is cooked. and then you have a little section to pick what thing in the kitchen you're using, whether it's the cutting board or whether it's the microwave or whatever. So when you're using it, you have to click into one of those menus. Then you have to cycle through the menu, and then you have to back out from that menu, go to a different menu to be able to access the next thing. And you have to constantly be backing out and backing into different sections of the menu to be able to use anything. So it just takes a while. And there are
Mhm.
some instances, like when you're building rooms, where even now I'm kind of forgetting how to get to certain features of building the room. Like
Oh,
I'll be
wow.
trying to back out to get
Uh-huh.
to the point where I can kind of like edit the walls. Like I need to make this room a little bit bigger, so I need to extend the walls out a little bit. And I'll because you have to back out to be able to get to that point. But if you back out too far, then it's like, oh, do you want to delete this room? I'm like, no, 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 no. I want to keep this room intact.
Nuke it all.
No, no. And then you have to back in. And I'm still doing that. I've put in probably 15 or so, 10 to 15 hours into it. And I'm still like, my brain still kind of forgets sometimes how to navigate certain menus, or that's like, oh, I need to click into this menu instead of just being able to access it right there.
Mhm.
Um, that's something that they definitely need to work on. There's other kind of weird things with just like smaller features. Like there's a storage box, but you can't just click an item and have it directly go to the storage box. You need to click the item, drag it to the storage box, put it in the storage box, and then you're pushed back to your main inventory, but to the top of the inventory, not to where the item was. So if the next item that you want to put in is in that area where the other item was, you have to scroll back down.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, there's a bunch of like weird
Sounds
features
like
like
stuff that could
that.
all be fixed though at some
Right,
point. Yeah.
which is what I wanna get into. The game itself, the actual, like, building the bed and breakfast and going around and doing quests for everybody is really fun. I'm really enjoying it. The characters are really interesting. I love the art style and the character portraits, and it's just really satisfying how the game slowly gives you more and more things to do, and it
Mhm.
slowly makes each of the bed and breakfast that you're building more and more complex, but you don't need to go back and constantly retrofit the old buildings with all of this new stuff, which I like. You're not having to like completely backtrack and completely change the things to put in a bathroom or put in a kitchen. It slowly gives those things to you so that on the later stages, it's just gotten more complex. And it does get complex. You're talking about, like bathrooms and kitchens, cooking things, and there's a bunch of other stylized rooms that that you have to think about. And there's all these different things that you have to think about with the later buildings that you work on, that it's a really fun balancing act of, like, oh, trying to make this a nice place to be. They want a nice decoration score, but oh, this this room gives you a negative effect, so you need to kind of retrofit it or keep it away from other areas, put things on the second floor, first floor. Some characters, some customers want a certain thing, so you have to, change a room around to fit it to their liking. It's really satisfying to fill out these rooms and then be able to put the customers in the specific rooms and kind of fill it all out and slowly build up all of these different places. So I think that for people who are on the fence on playing it, definitely wait until a patch or two comes out, because
Okay.
there is some work that needs to be done. But if you saw that gameplay and you're like, "Hey, I really want to play that," and you don't want to play it on PC, I think that even now with some of the issues that it has, it's still entirely serviceable. It's a ton of fun, and I haven't had an experience too recently where a game's come out and I've just constantly been like thinking about it when I'm not playing it. And this is one of
Uh-huh.
them. Like,
That's cool.
I'm constantly thinking about it. I have all of these quests that I want to do, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? Where's the story going to go from here?
Mhm.
What next thing am I going to unlock? How is it going to change the building experience when I unlock certain rooms and certain things? Like, it's fun, and has gotten to the point where it's gotten to the complexity where you really have to think about certain things, and that's been a lot of fun. But I think that
Cool.
it eases you into it enough. So I've been impressed with it. It's a good time. I highly recommend once a couple of patches come out to fix some of the performance issues that you give it a shot. I think it's fun.
Sweet. Yeah, I still want to play it. I'm just not buying anything new right now because I'm trying to get through Xenoblade, but this is one on my list for sure. It looks really cool.
Yeah. And then the other new game, it's not a full new game, but the Harvestella demo came out, and I thought that I would give it a shot and see how it is. And I'm torn on it.
Okay.
So graphically, it looks much better than the stuff that I was seeing with Rune Factory. Just the stylized world, I think, is much nicer to look at and just much prettier. So there's that. The game doesn't run very well, unfortunately. You
Handheld
get
or dock?
This is docked. I don't play my
Okay.
Switch in handheld too much. So
Okay.
this is all docked. All of my experiences are docked. And it's not like the game is chugging super hard, but you'll definitely be getting frame drops even just on your farm, which
Hmm.
is a little distressing considering that there's very little going on at the start. Like I
Is this
only have
game
a
coming to
couple of crops
PlayStation?
planted. I think it's a Switch exclusive at this point,
Okay.
at least for now. Um, yeah, so the performance is leaves some things to be desired. The combat as well is something that I would hope gets more complex as you go along, but it does not leave a very good first impression. It gives you that first class of just kind of like a swordsman class. There's no dodge or block function at all.
So it's just
So,
hacking.
right. So you're just hacking away at things and you just have to take hits. So you're just constantly getting wailed on, which
Uh-huh.
means if you go up against a an enemy that is higher level than you, you're just going to get stomped because you can't avoid anything.
That's weird.
Which and the range that they can hit you from, see, like if you're trying to like back up to even just get some space so that they won't hit you, it feels like they can still hit you from a ways away.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that can't be introduced later, or that I can't imagine that a dodge and block would be on just a very specific class. Maybe,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I would assume that things get more complex as things go on, but just the absence of a dodge or a block is really weird. Really weird. Um, the farming is
Interesting.
fine. It's not as complex as other farming games. I think that it's more focused on the combat than it is on the farming. And they show that there's a couple of different pens that you can end up buying for certain animals that I don't think you can really get in this demo because they don't give you enough time for that. But I mean, that's there. They have a crafting system. There's cooking. There's fishing. I mean, all of the stuff is there. But nothing about it jumped out to me as like, oh my God, this is incredible. It
Yeah.
was kind of like, oh, the world is nice. The character portraits are quite pretty. Like this is nice. The farming's okay. The combat's not the best. Maybe it'll get better.
So
I
you think
think
you're gonna play it? Did this demo sell you, or did it turn you away from buying it?
it turned me away from buying it day one. I think.
Okay.
I don't think after this, I'm not chomping at the bit to play it day one. It didn't it didn't put me off completely of ever playing it because I can see these types of games getting more and more complex and more fun to play as you get further on. Um, but I don't think this demo did the best job of of showing this game off.
Okay.
And it also didn't really show any of the like I don't know, when I think about these types of games, one of the big things is talking to the villagers and kind of getting to know this town. And
Mhm.
here you have multiple towns, but there's only like two or three characters that I've met that have their own portrait. The rest of them are kind of just, general NPCs walking around, which I'm kind of worried is the way that it's going to be for all of these other towns. And
Uh-huh.
that besides the look of the towns themselves, there's not really that much that sets them apart, or you're not meeting all of these different people. Maybe you do. Again, this
Yeah.
is coming from a demo that's only up to the first 15 days in chapter 2, but from how that first town felt, it doesn't really feel like there's a ton of memorable characters that you can meet, which I think is part of the reason why people play these games,
Yeah.
for that kind
Definitely.
of aspect of it. So it's all right.
All right.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
okay.
interesting to put out a demo this early of a game that's maybe not that great, but I mean, good of them to do it. So you can
Yeah, I
see.
appreciate it
Yeah.
because yeah, it gave me more clarity on what I'm going to do, which is wait and see how the reviews are and possibly pick it up later down the road and give it a shot. I think this
Yeah.
will be better than what Rune Factory 5 was. I think there's more here, but
Yeah.
um, not 100% of what I was looking for and wanting, at least based on this short demo. Another really weird thing, they give you the option to change between Japanese or English voices, and I was like, okay,
Uh-huh.
that's cool. Come to find out, the only thing that's voiced is just random phrases that people say on the battlefield. That's it, and they don't translate them either. So
That's
if you're doing it
funny.
in Japanese and you don't understand Japanese at all, they'll just be saying these phrases and you have no idea what they're saying most of the time.
That's funny.
I just thought it was weird that they put that front and center, like, oh, this
Wow, that's the
dialogue
only thing
is,
that's voiced? That's surprising.
yeah, because there's all of this story at the beginning. The story is actually quite relatively interesting for a farming game. That's one of the things that I want to learn more about. But yeah, there's all this story stuff at the start and none of it's voiced. So I was
Uh-huh.
like, it was just interesting that they decided to put that front and center before you start the game. Like, oh, what language do you want the audio to be in?
Yeah,
And there's barely any of it in there.
that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And then besides that, I finished Integrate a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
Got me
Did you
excited
like it?
for, yeah, it was fun. Definitely got me more excited for playing the next Final Fantasy game because it really shows you at the end, like gets you excited for what comes next.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little bite-sized thing to kind of whet your appetite for the next one.
It's a good length for a DLC. I really liked it.
Yeah, not too long. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a nice little bite-sized thing. So it was fun though. Yeah.
Cool.
And besides that, just been Xenoblade. If you want to talk about what you've been up to, and then we can finish off with
Yes.
Xenoblade.
Yes. So quick, I already mentioned Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, replaying that. Still really liking that. Just super hyped for Zelda next year. So I already been playing Breath of the Wild, so wanted to jump back into that, and it's been a good time. And then doing the split screen, actually playing it with Zach whenever we're able to meet up, doing the split screen, and it does chug. Okay, a lot. It chugs a lot, but it's okay. It's still playable. It's still a good time. But yeah, if the Switch ever got a hardware upgrade, I would hope this is like they would go back and patch some old games, and this is like the number one game that I'm like, oh man, if you could just update this to make it at least run at solid 30, that would be amazing because the game's already really good. And if it was smoother, it'd be even better because it chugs at points. When Zach and I both use like our special move, like when your bar is full and you both hit A to unleash like your special move, it's like 10 frames a second. Like
Oh God.
it is chugging at that point. But yeah, we're enjoying that. And then Splatoon 3, the hour counter became available since the game's been out for over 10 days, and I am 25 hours in to
There we
this
go.
thing, and it is awesome. Nothing new really to say, except Splatfest is this weekend. So I'll probably talk about that next week since I still haven't tried out the tricolor turf war, the new thing
Oh, okay, yeah.
for Splatfest. I didn't get to do that in the demo because I didn't play during that time. So I'll have that to talk about on next week's show. But yeah, still loving Splatoon 3. It is easily the best in the series still, just a couple weeks in. And then new Fall Guys season is out. This is season 2 of the free-to-play, season 8 overall. It is space-themed. There are 8 new games, which is a lot. I think it's the most they've ever added in at one time besides season 1 when the game came out. And the games aren't that great. They are not very good. There's a couple races that are good. There's 2 new finales, one of which is awesome. It's Tiptoe, but it's a finale. So it's just the first person to the crown
That's
wins.
really tense.
It is very fun. And we've only done it squad based. And how it works when it's squad based is the crown is in the middle, and then there are 4 tiptoe paths, and your squad has one path. So you're working together as a team
to
just
that's very
sprint down
different.
this thing as a group of 4 and find the path as fast as possible. Super fun. One of the best finales. But then some of the games are just terrible. Like there's one called Pixel Painters, which is a like 8x8 grid, and then there's this video screen far away that shows you this pattern that you need to replicate on your grid. And when you step on a button, it lights up, and when you step on it again, it dims. And coordinating that with 4 people in a squad, when you It's miserable. It's just miserable. It's just not fun. We played in a group with 3 people and 1 stranger, and I think that the stranger knew the 3 of us were working together, and they just stood off to the side and let us do it, and we qualified. But then we had another time where it was me and Zach just playing with 2 randos, and they were like griefing us. They were just I think they were kids that didn't know what we were doing because they were just like running all around the path, and I'm like, why are you just ruining our chances? And eventually we just held them. Like we would just grab each of them off on the side and then try and do it ourselves, but they would run back. And then like the third time we just grabbed them and we're like, don't move. And then we did it ourselves. We got the last spot available. So we still made it and got them through. That's a rough game. And then there's some others that are just forgettable. Like, yeah, there's one where you're like in this factory and there's these buttons moving around on these conveyor belts and you have to step on the lit up button. So it's kind of like the hoops one where you have to jump through the hoops to score points,
Yeah.
but you're just stepping on these buttons and it's super forgettable. So overall, it's one of the weaker entries for a season for sure, but it's still fun to have new games to go back. And the battle pass is way harder to level up. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
It used to take like 1,000 to level up. Now it takes like 8,000 to level up. So I think the days of us completing it are over. I do not think we're going to get... Zach didn't even finish the last one. I did barely. I don't think we're going to get all the way up to 100. It goes to 200 now, actually.
When you go free to play, you want to push people to that currency as much as possible.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the days of us being super into Fall Guys are winding down. The free to play Switch kind of removed some of the excitement over the cool new costumes because you just have to pay for them now. We're not really going to do that. So, yeah, but it's still fun. But yeah, and then Xenoblade.
Yeah. You have played a lot more than me. I am still in the opening hours, just about 4 hours in, but I'm enjoying it a lot. I think the story setup is really good.
Me too.
I'm not going to say who if you haven't played the previous games and don't want to get spoiled, but there's already a character that has appeared in a previous Xenoblade game that shows up here, which means that these worlds are connected somehow, which is more than I could say about 1 and 2, because I don't think there was any overlapping characters there. And if there was, it wasn't noticeable. So that's really cool. I'm excited to see where that goes and to see how much more of a crossover there is. If that shows up in the beginning hours, I have to imagine that it plays more into that as we go along. And then, yeah, I've just gotten to the point where you've got a larger party of characters and you're going to be able to swap between the characters. And I'm really excited to get into that more because in the previous games, I would just pick like Shulk or the main character and roll with that the entire game. I'm excited that I can swap between these characters and that I can get to experience these different play styles, which I didn't really get to before. I was also impressed with the tutorials in this one. I felt like the tutorials in the previous games could get really overwhelming to the point where you just had no idea what was going on. Maybe it helps that I played the previous ones, but I feel like it.
No, I felt that way too. And I have not played the previous one.
It gives them to you without overloading you completely, and always gives you the chance to do it yourself, which I think is super important to be like, all right, here is this new feature. You do it. Here it is. Now you know how to do it. I was impressed with how good the tutorials are, because in previous Xenoblade games, there's a lot to teach you, and sometimes it doesn't teach you very well.
I think the main trade-off to that is I'm 21 hours in, and I'm still regularly getting tutorials, and I don't think that's going to end ever.
I would assume it ends at some point.
I read when I talked to a guy who reviewed this game, and he said that he was 120 hours in and was still getting new mechanics,
which is cool.
Nuts. Yeah, very cool. Like, this game is insane. Yeah, I'm 21 hours in now, doing a lot of side quests. I'm just stumbling upon these things, and then like this fully voiced 10-minute cutscene starts, and you're like, "Whoa, this is a side quest!" But it feels like required reading. Like, it feels like an essential part of the experience to do the hero quest specifically, where you're recruiting the 7th member of your party, and there's like 25 of them or something insane like that. Like, there's a ton of them, and it feels pretty essential to do these, to meet these characters, learn about them, but it also fleshes out the main party. But yeah, it's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It is such a good game.
Yeah, I think already I have a feeling that this is going to eclipse Xenoblade 2 for me. And Xenoblade 1 we'll see, probably at least in gameplay. It's really impressing me. And of course, the Xenoblade worlds that they create are gorgeous as always, even just
Yeah.
from the couple of areas that I've been to. It's like, yep. Love these at every single game previously, and they're back again. Like, just the worlds that they craft, the music that ties along with them. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I'm going to be plugging away on most, along with Splatoon. Like, Splatoon has started to go down a little bit from like multiple hours every single day to I'm still playing every day, but not as much. So I'm trying to reintroduce my diet of Xenoblade into my life so I can get through this game.
Yeah, I've been taken by Bear and Breakfast. It's a shorter game, so I've just been playing a bunch of that, but I feel like
Yeah.
that'll slow down and I'll finish that up, and then it'll be basically all Xenoblade for a while, which is what I want
Yeah.
because it'll suck up my life.
I think that it has serious potential to be my game of the year, and sounding from how much it seems like you're liking it so far, it could be the Odie's game of the year this year if we
If I can
both
get through enough of it.
to make that
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like as long as I do play through enough of it, it probably will be my game of the year, or at the very least top 2.
Same, which I never would have guessed because we didn't even know about this game coming into this year.
Here it is. I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot more in the next couple of weeks as we're playing through it.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask real quick, is there a class switching? Is there a lot of class switching in the first 2 Xenoblade games?
I don't think there was class switching in the first one. I think
Because
that you were just changing your movesets for the characters. Xenoblade
Okay.
2, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember as much of, but I think that was more so swapping your blades. So you were able to collect
Okay,
all these
yeah.
different blades, and that kind of changed up how you fought. So I don't think
Because
so.
I am 21 hours in and I have rebuilt all 6 characters in my party at least 5 times to be entirely new classes. Because how it works is once you level them up to skill level 10 of their class, they unlock that class as like special skill that then they can then use
Carry
regardless
over,
of what
right?
class
Yeah.
they are. And so it's like I'm just constantly changing them. And it's like that makes the character swapping fun because it's like it's the most fun to play as an attacker, right? So if I'm switching my class every 3 hours, then I'm gonna like, oh, now I'm gonna be Mio for the next few hours because she's an attacker. I'm gonna be Uni because I gave her the sword, and that's something super cool that you do. I do all the time, and I find in super difficult boss battles, like I did this one side quest that leads to a boss fight that feels like a chapter ending boss fight. You fight an enormous dude at the end of a hero quest early on in the game, and it's like out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm woefully unprepared. I got slaughtered, and then it does an amazing thing that more games need to do, that it sends you back to a checkpoint, but before it loads you into the cutscene, it's like, do you want to make changes to your equipment and classes? And I was like, yes, I do. And then I go in, I put 3 healers in, plus my hero at the time, who was a healer. So I had 4 healers, 2 attackers, and 1 defender. And so the defender was just wailed on by this dude.
Soaking the hits and constantly getting healed.
Because and I played as one of the healers. I was not winning this fight when I was playing as an attacker. Like whoever you are playing as is the most effective person on the battlefield.
Smartest, yeah.
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So then I switched to a healer, and I'm just healing everyone like mad. And the fight took forever, but I won because I was playing as a healer. I had a chance to change my party, and just the way that strategy plays out with the combat system. I guess what I felt from when I played Xenoblade 1, and I know I didn't get far enough in to really understand this, I just felt like it didn't really matter, and I felt like I was going to win the fight just by watching it. And I don't know, I just didn't really like how it all played out. But this really feels like your decisions matter, who you play as matter, how you build your party matters, and it's just so addicting to try and maximize what you have, your skills, your party, your levels to the max to win these really difficult boss fights. Yeah, it's super cool.
That definitely gives you more wiggle room to be able to take on these fights in a different way. Because it wasn't like that in the first game. It was just swapping a certain party member out for a different party member, and then in 2 it was just mixing and matching with these different blades. But yeah, if you want to just kill a dude quick and it's like, yeah, let me just dump in a bunch of attackers and try and end this fight quick. Or yeah, if you're doing like a war of attrition and you're like, all right, I need a bunch of healers and just have the defender come in and just soak up a ton of hits. I think that's cool that you can do that, and you can approach these different fights in completely different ways if you want to, and you can mix and match it. If you go in and something doesn't work, you can come out and go back in with a different crew and see if it goes better that time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to playing more. Playing a lot of good games lately.
Oh yeah.
Playing a lot of Bear and Breakfast, which is great. Xenoblade is really good. Hope I wasn't too hard on Bear and Breakfast. It has some issues that I think are going to be patched. But that core gameplay is really fun. And I love Hank. He's adorable. He's so cute. I'm looking forward to playing more and seeing where the story goes, because it kind of sets up some things that are actually kind of serious. So
that's
I'm
interesting.
Looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Cool.
Final thoughts before we wrap up. We're going long.
Yeah, I feel like I'm playing with not knowing about Sonic, because maybe Sonic swoops in and is my favorite game this year. That would be awesome. I'm not counting on it, but I feel like I'm playing my two favorite games of the year right now, with Xenoblade and Splatoon. So I'm in a good place right now where it's like, I want something serious to invest in. Xenoblade, I want something to just relax, play for a little bit. Splatoon, I love to have two games to bounce back and forth like that.
That's perfect.
So,
yeah,
in a good
that
spot.
Multiplayer game and that single player.
Yep.
A lot of good games to play. Xenoblade's going to take over my life.
Yes, sir.
Which is why I am doing Bear and Breakfast first, because it's a smaller title. I can have my fun with it, play through it, and then devote my time to Xenoblade, because I know that's how I'm going to play it. And that's just going to be it for me.
So get ready for the next month. We're just like, what we've been playing? Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Yeah.
That's how it goes when you're playing a 150-hour RPG.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. That's all you have time for. That's going to do it for us on this week's episode of Ode to Games. We're here on Thursdays or Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, other podcast streaming services that you may use. On YouTube at Ode to Games, that's where the video version of the podcast is, so you can check it out every week there as well. We're on Twitter at Ode to Games. You can send an email to odegames@gmail.com. For Logan, I'm Kevin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.